Good evening.
Good evening, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is King-mong Chan, and I work with the Carnegie Community Action Project. Let's remember that we are here on unceded Coast Salish territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh. Let's remember that we are here tonight for the people in downtown Eastside, for the low-income community and those most vulnerable. We're here tonight because as we speak, this community is still suffering from trauma, suffering from the housing crisis, suffering from gentrification, and the situation is getting worse. I thank you for the amendments, some of the amendments put forward, such as requiring that at least some of the social housing is at welfare pension rate, and ensuring that there's at least 60-40 zoning in the Oppenheimer district. However, the amendments do not go far enough to actually solve the housing crisis. Gentrification, displacement, and homelessness will still increase unless you put in further measures. The example of Woodward shows us that even if we build social housing at welfare rate, such social mixed projects end up causing a net loss of low-income housing because such projects promote gentrification. In the case of Woodward, despite the 125 welfare rate units built, over 400 low-income SR rooms in the area were lost, and not to mention a loss of low-income community assets as well. And this is going to happen even with the 60-40 in the Oppenheimer district and the other zoning proposals right now for other areas of downtown Eastside. And that's why I asked you to amend it to even further, to 80-20 and even 100% social housing. And so no doubt someone's going to scream at me and say, this is not financially viable or feasible. And I hope this kind of statement makes you feel sick, because it makes me feel sick. Viable. If someone asks me if this kind of question, this kind of zoning, if it is financially viable, let me ask a different question. Is it viable for someone to die? Is it feasible? Is it viable for someone to be displaced out of their home onto streets and freeze to death? Is it viable to break apart a beloved community, a neighborhood many people call home, where the services, support networks, friends, and family are? Is that viable? Is that feasible? And I sure hope to God that your answers are no. We need to recognize this is an issue of life and death. Gentrification and free market is a raging fire that is attacking the downtown Eastside low-income community. This is not a time to whisper to senior levels of government and say, hey, there's a fire going on. We have a housing crisis. This is not the time for fire trucks to take their time coming slowly. Oh, there's a fire. Oh, we're coming. This is the time to yell at seniors level of governments. We have a housing crisis. To yell at them, to scream. This is time to say the money for social housing, higher welfare rates need to come now. Because at this moment, every moment we speak, lives are at stake. The advocacy strategy must carry this sense of crisis. And it must do whatever it takes to put out this fire and solve the housing crisis. Through the media, on the streets, whatever it takes. Displacement is a huge concern for this community. And the plan, it also includes incentives for private landlords to upgrade SROs. Are SROs in really bad conditions and need to be replaced with self-contained housing? Yes, of course. But without rent controls, essentially you are paying landlords to displace their tenants onto the streets. That's what it is, and it's a huge shame. It should not happen. And as you have heard, displacement is escalating with these buildings owned by Littman, and we have personal stories to tell about that, and I hope it has that impact on you, and something needs to be done about that. Don't allow for micro-dwelling units because they aren't dignified housing for people either. Upgrade the SROs to become self-contained, but ensure that they are accessible to people on welfare and old age pensions. And the same thing with the definition of social housing. Everywhere in the downtown east side, throughout the city, 1/3 is at shelter rate is better than nothing, but 1/3 isn't going to provide housing for those who need it the most. All social housing needs to be affordable to people on welfare and old age pension. All. And so I suppose this time I'm giving you yet another chance. Another chance to step up the amendments. Speaking with some members of the Chinese community, I hear their frustration. That's part of the reason why you don't see them here today. Because they realize that you don't listen when they say there needs to be a much higher percentage of social housing. And their voices aren't going to be physically heard here tonight, but rest assured their frustration is going to be seen on the voting ballots in November. And in ending, I want to remind you that when it's time for you to vote tonight, when you raise your hands in favor or in opposition, with this seemingly effortless action, you are voting for the lives of the people in downtown Eastside. You are deciding to make the lives of the poor and vulnerable in downtown Eastside even worse, or to save lives and defend the community against gentrification and displacement. I hope you would do the right thing. Affect the low-income caucus position. Make the amendments that CAP has called on you to make in our submission to you. Thank you.